if we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before.
From 1980 to 2017, the idea of what it means to be an American has changed. This is because of events that have taken place over this period of time impacting how we see America as a whole. There was a lot going on in the 80s considering the Cold War was coming to an end, but there were still high tensions between communist nations in the US, which in turn stirred up new economic and political problems that would affect the American people. With the US trying to support anti-communist nations, there were thousands of refugees immigrating from around the world. But in 1982, Reagan cracked down on anti-communist support. A year earlier, Reagan put into place the Economic Recovery Tax Act, cutting taxes across the board, making the next few years great for the American dream. America was a place to live if you wanted freedom, especially if you were a defecting communist. In the early 80s, to be an American meant that an individual could do anything they set their mind to, while in reality immigrants and lower class were constantly under the spotlight, and when the stock market crashed in 1987, that just made everything worse.
Sonny, there's only one word to describe what's happening, and that is panic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is off almost 200 points. It is down by 191. Had been down a fall right now. Volume, 345 million shares.
Incredible day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now down 271.53 points, putting the Dow below the 2,000 mark. The Dow right now at 1975.20.
By the early 1990s, Bush had been elected promising no taxes and a sluggish American economy, causing even more social unrest towards the government and its ability to serve the people. Over the next few years, oil and anti-communist movements dictated the American people's attitude. With the Valdez oil spill, the Persian Gulf War, the invasion of Panama, and more all contributed to the growing suspicion of not only the government, but towards the people of those countries. With the destruction of the Berlin Wall in 1989, there was a flood of immigrants trying to move to the U.S., forcing the U.S. to grow its immigration margin to 700,000 in the 1990 Immigration Act. Following the act, the American people soon began to not buy into the whole American dream thing, and began to blame the immigrants for job loss and less job opportunity, pushing the traditional American identity farther away for those who already lived here.
Time and time again, we hear illegal immigrants are taking jobs from struggling Americans and that they should go back to their countries.
By 1992, the Soviet Union finally collapsed.
Mikhail Gorbachev's dreams of holding the Soviet Union together may have received a death blow today. The Union's 3 Slavic republics announced they are forming a separate Commonwealth of independent states. Russia, the Ukraine, and Belarus control much of the Soviet Union's economic power, enough to challenge the rapidly fading strength of Gorbachev's central government.
Bankrupt and losing support, the empire's leader resigned, leaving the newly freed states to form their own government. This event boosted American morale, reinvigorating the traditional idea that America is stronger than everyone else, when in reality is just better at waiting out financial troubles. The economy was back on the rise, allowing for a more productive America on all levels. In 1993, NAFTA was created, allowing for free trade in North America, boosting North American economy tremendously. And with the boosting of economy follows the boosting of American happiness. Jumping a few years, in 1996, the Defense of Marriage Act really angered a minority group often referred to as LGBT. And to many, this act defies what America promises, which is having the freedom to say what you want, do what you want to do, and to protest what you don't like. Although this group may be a minority, there were millions of supporters who just wanted those people to be happy. We are now in the year 2000. It is the turn of the century and the beginning of a new millennium. There were new styles, music, and technology was growing faster than ever. But only a year later, the US was changed forever. After the 2 towers in the Pentagon were attacked on 9/11, American identity momentarily was crushed and broken. But from this horrific tragedy, the US was able to unite and fight together for an ultimate goal of freedom and democracy. America was once defined as the underdog when fighting the Revolutionary War, but today we are the world's most powerful nation. People of all race, religion, and gender come together to form this country, and over the next decade this nation was dedicated to fighting for this identity so it can remain true. Although after 9/11 many people of Middle Eastern connection have been targeted for hate, blame, and persecution, which still even today is happening, even if they are born here or raised here, they are seen by some people as extremists or terrorists, just because of how they look or dress. These actions against our own American people is terrible and goes completely against the American identity immigrants moved here for. By 2003, the US invaded Iraq to fight the war on terror. Tensions towards Arabs were still high, but progress was being made.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
So, is America fighting for the right reasons? I believe we are. Are we fighting the right fight? Again, I believe we are. Reason being is it's easy to close our borders and wait for something to happen here in the United States. But the reality is if we want to go and prevent mass casualties through terrorist actions, we need to go over there. By fighting the war on their land, we avoid having the terrorist actions here on our own. People often ask me about how I feel about when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan the first time. Absolutely. We did the right thing, we did it for the right reason. It's debatable whether or not we found weapons of mass destruction or dirty bombs. The simple fact of the matter is the fact that we went there and fought that war there, that war did not come here to the United States. We're not having massive bombings every other day here in the United States as other countries are now experiencing.
President Bush promised the American people that he would avenge our fellow Americans and those who died trying to save them. By 2011, Osama bin Laden, leader of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, had been killed. At this time, there were active duty troops in Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, and Iraq. Shortly after reaching a decade, the American people were finally able to breathe easy. But the war continued on, and just like Vietnam, the support for the war began to dwindle. In the middle of all this overseas conflict, the US suffered one of its most devastating market crashes ever. In 2008, market crashed, leaving millions unemployed and homeless. The American dream seemed too far out of reach. Americans around the country were unable to maintain their job security, and quality of life decreased greatly, impacting the American national identity, with government and economy being blamed for all of the nation's problems.
This is the only country that I've ever been in where Americans, they hate themselves. Every other country I've been in, you can't speak out against your country, and if you do, you're punished. But even if you live in that country, you don't want to speak out against your country. Here in America, one of our rights is the ability to be able to speak out openly and freely, the ability to protest openly and freely, and the ability to basically say what you want to say and do what you want to do without fear of reprisal, repercussion, or any of that sort of things. That being said, here in America, we will have American citizens that are foreign by birth, and they come here and they'll oftentimes tell me, you know, how much they hate it here, or how much how I'm the man because I'm a police officer and I'm keeping them down, and I'll only go after them because they're black, Asian, white, whatever the case may be. And that's their right. They have that right, and they have that freedom to be able to say that. And I respect that right, and I respect that ability for them to say that. It's just amazing to me how we as Americans can speak bad about our own country and self-deprecate ourselves when no other people do that about their own country. Not only do they not do that, but they don't have the right or the ability or the freedom to do that. So I absolutely love America because we have these inalienable rights and freedoms and abilities that nowhere else on the planet do you have.
America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world. And no one will keep that light from shining.
It continues the promise that here in America, you can make it if you try.
The American dream for me is security, safety, and happiness.